Hello, first movers. It is Yaz here, coming to you on a very, very big day here in Australia, where the Australian social media ban has come into play. Now, we know at First Movers that many of you that are listening in to our podcast are parents or caregivers who are going to be involved in or have to deal with this social media ban. So I thought I'd jump on here and give you a bit of the lay of the land, some things that you as first movers need to understand about the internet, about young people, and about how this social media ban might affect those that you love the most. At First Movers, we're all about making sure that we actively shape the environments that we're in so the world can meet its full potential. Big picture mission, but it really does start by understanding places like digital environments for our young people. So, what do you need to know about Australia's social media ban? Well, to start with, it's a really big call. It's a well-intentioned call, but it's only a partial solution. And as first movers, partial solutions are just not good enough. We can pat ourselves on the back here and say, hey, yeah, we did something. We've tried to make it safer. But as you'll learn throughout this podcast episode, this little quickie that I'm giving you, sometimes there are unintended consequences that we just need to pay more attention to. And I wanted to start, I guess, with a bit of a story. Let me introduce you to Ezra. Now, Ezra is 15. He's a quadriplegic, and he's one of the voices that we're not hearing enough from. Social media is how Ezra connects with the world that he can't move through physically. It's where his friendships live, it's where his passions lie, and where his identity has space to form. In ways, perhaps it might be a bit of escapism for him, but it's so much more than that. For Ezra, it's about access. And while this might seem like a less common case for most kids, does that make him any less important? His wants, his needs, and his ability to connect with the community he deserves to be part of. Shouldn't the benchmark for public policy be whether it works for every young person, including those for whom connection is an absolute lifeline? Don't they deserve for us to get this right for all of them? And, when it comes to digital life, schools are another stakeholder that we're starting to include in this conversation, but not enough. And they're the ones that see the real picture every single day. I wanted to share some data that has come into play from an organization called Qoria. And I actually work a lot with Qoria these days. But we did a global study. We studied and asked questions and surveyed around 1,000 schools around the world. In Australia, of course, New Zealand, the UK, and the US. And I wanted to share some important data with you because it highlights the fact that social media, while being a large part of the online harms that kids experience, is just one partial segment. Now, 100% of Australian schools who responded to this survey have said that they're concerned about mental health impacts of online behaviours. 46% of them said they face digital harm incidents weekly and 12% daily. But here's the kicker. The biggest issues for them: online bullying and harassment, which appear in 83% of schools who responded and was the largest rate of bullying from any region that we surveyed. So Australia came up trumps with that one. Now, the really interesting thing is that bullying or ostracism or exclusion, all encompassed in that sort of term, often happens in group chats, whether that be on games or on messaging platforms, which aren't covered by the ban. Gaming addiction was another one that came up, impacting 79% of the schools that responded. And again, gaming, as I mentioned, is not covered under the ban. Many of you will probably see, the comments around a platform like Roblox, for example, being left out, whereas there are a huge amount of issues on that. And of course, AI is rising fast. 83% of schools are worried about exposure to unregulated or misleading content. And 50% are concerned students are turning to AI instead of trusted adults. Now, this matters because the ban only covers a slice of the problem. The TikToks, the Instagram, Snapchats, and YouTube, the 10 platforms that were covered here. But the biggest risks schools name are gaming, bullying, AI chatbots, online disinhibition, and the echo chambers that kids are in, all in many ways still wide open. It's kind of like closing a door next to an open window. Now, the issue with bans is that they create behavioral displacement. Kids migrate. We've seen it already. They always have, and in many ways, they always will. Schools in the survey expect exactly this. Students bypassing blocks through VPNs, through alternate accounts, and shifting to other platforms with far less regulation and far fewer safeguards. Your Discords, your Robloxes, your private gaming chats, and your AI companions. And that is where harm becomes much harder to see. When a child moves to the shadows, help seeking drops. When they hide their online life, when they're banned from something and they access it anyway, those early signs, the changes in mood, the sleep, the focus, connection, they become much easier to miss. And the report that Coria mentioned is really clear. The greatest challenge for schools and parents isn't responding to harm, it's seeing it early enough to prevent it. So yes, the ban is a great beginning, but it is not a safety system. It's half a job, a quarter even. And my worry, the phase 2 that we need to address the gaming, the AI, the chatbots, my fear is that phase 2 gets lost. The media cycle moves on, the announcement gets remembered, and the implementation we need doesn't. Meanwhile, kids don't stop being online. They just stop being visible. Now, we need to make sure that we're looking at government policy that is embracing all of these issues, that visibility essentially is everything. We need to make sure that as parents, we engage more with schools, with our kids, that we have better awareness for them as well. In that Courier report, a lot of the schools said that 68% of them said that this was critical. And we've got to think about the ways technology can actually prevent harm. How can we integrate things like intelligent monitoring, filtering, age-appropriate access and tools? Now, this is where the real answer sits. It's actually not in banning platforms so much, but equipping families just like you with the same level of digital protection already offered to big businesses. Now, stay with me here. Right now, device-level safety technology exists. Google, Apple, and Microsoft provide advanced filtering, monitoring, and risk detection systems to enterprise clients, but not everyday parents. This is where we need to focus on phase 2 being device-level safety. Because imagine if Google, Apple, and Microsoft did actually provide that technology. We could imagine a world where every device in a home filters harmful content at the operating system level, that every parent can set age-appropriate experiences that can't be circumvented, that every app, every browser, every chat is safety checked automatically. Students, young people can explore, connect, learn, and play without falling through the cracks of the digital world. And parents and schools can speak a common digital language grounded in confidence, not fear. This, my friends, is the gateway. This is the scalable safety system, and it is what we'd consider a first mover approach. Now, one of the things we always do here, of course, is break this down with our first movers framework. And we'll start with fueling growth. Why does this approach and why does this social media ban need to be rethought? Well, regulation is a start, but safety must keep pace with reality. And the goal isn't fewer apps or a whack-a-mole approach. It's actually safer ecosystems. If we can fuel our own growth, our understanding around those concepts, we're going to have a successful outcome. Ignite courage. Well, it takes courage to say this, to appreciate the effort, but knowing that we need a whole solution, not just a media headline here. How do we reframe relationships in this context? Well, kids, they don't need less connection, they need safer connection. Parents don't need more policing, they need better, easier to use tools to keep them safe and make those decisions on behalf of their kids in their families so that we have a nuanced approach around age and developmental stages, and of course, the needs for kids there too. When it comes to shaping the status quo, this is where industry must move. Not schools, not families. The big three gatekeepers of Google, Apple, and Microsoft already have the keys. So it's time for them to hand them to the people who need them the most. Finally, telling your story. Ezra's story is our reminder. Policy built for the middle leaves those on the margins unprotected. And their stories matter. They reveal the gaps. They show us where the system fails and they push us to lift the standard. The social media ban is not a bad move, but it's not the move. A safer digital future isn't built on what we restrict, it's built on what we empower. Phase 2 of this matters. Device level safety matters. Education matters. Partnership with families and schools matters. And true visibility into the real issues, things like bullying, gaming, AI, in addition to social media, is what matters most. We don't protect kids by shrinking their world. We protect them by strengthening it. And this is our moment to lead with courage, with evidence, and as a first mover, to build a system that works for every child, including the ones like Ezra. Be a first mover, and see you next time.